If you grew up in the 90s and you're a millennial girl like me, then you probably watched The Swan Princess. And let's be honest, The Swan Princess really is just a Disney princess knockoff, but it's a good Disney princess knockoff. So I decided to watch every Swan Princess movie, so you don't have to. The original Swan Princess movie came out in 1994, and it was a total box office bomb. It made less than $10 million, which actually makes this entire Swan Princess franchise pretty interesting because we have 10 of these swan spots. So without further ado, let's jump into all 10 of the Swan Princess movies. I watched them, so you don't have to. Started, I will be spoiling every single one of these movies, so if you're really looking forward to watching The Swan Princess royally undercover, then I recommend stopping right now. Actually, no. I watched these for you, so you don't have to. Starting with The Swan Princess. Now, this isn't a ranking video, but by far, hands down, this is the best of all of the Swan Princess films. It only goes down from here, and maybe it picks back up at the end. And like I mentioned before, The Swan Princess is really a Disney princess knockoff movie. Disney really is the gold standard when it comes to these fairy tale princess movies. They have amazing songs, amazing animation, amazing stories. They really know how to put a great movie together. So obviously in the 90s, there were a lot of knockoffs, a lot of films that decided, okay,
Disney does animation with songs, so we have to do animation with songs.
And it doesn't turn out so well for a lot of these films. But The Swan Princess is an exception. So The Swan Princess tells the story of these two kingdoms. One has a princess and one has a prince, and the parents decide that they want to join their kingdoms together by arranging a marriage with these two children. Now, both of these parents are a widow and a widower, so I don't know why they just couldn't have gotten married and joined their kingdoms, why they had to go on this elaborate ruse for 20 years to get the kids to like each other, but whatever. So Odette the princess and Derek the prince, they basically grow up visiting each other's castles every summer, and they don't like each other, right? Until the very moment when they grow up and they realize, wow, you're the one I've been waiting for. You're amazing. I'm in love with you. You look beautiful. You're handsome.
Puberty does a lot for people.
However, Derek totally blows it with one of the most classic lines in animation ever.
But what else?
What else?
Is beauty all that matters to you?
Derek? What else?
What else is there?
So the marriage is off and Odette and her dad go back home. During this time, they are ambushed by a sorcerer named Rothbart who kills Odette's dad, kidnaps Odette, and turns her into a swan. The entire movie at this point is basically Derek trying to redeem himself.
What else is there?
Feeling so guilty that he didn't realize that Odette actually had a lot more to her than just her looks. So then he is training up to save the day to fight the Great Animal, which is basically just Rothbart in disguise. During this whole time, Rothbart decides that he wants to marry Odette, and so he turns her into a swan, and she can only turn back into a human if she goes onto Swan Lake when the moon is up. If there's no moon, she remains a swan. Now, I'm not going to go plot point by plot point in this video, but I really need to set the stage of the Swan Princess original film because the later films pull heavily from what happens in this first one, or they just do it again and again and again. So it's important that you understand the basic premise of The Swan Princess, specifically that Odette turns into a swan. Now, the reason that I love this movie so much, even though, yes, it's a cheap Disney knockoff, cheap and knockoff doesn't necessarily mean bad. And this one is really, really good. I think what really does it for me is this very beginning song, This Is My Idea. And what is so great about this song is we get to see these two main characters grow up over the period of 15 years. And it really does a great job of capturing the emotions, how they feel about each other, and ultimately how they grow to love each other at the very, very end. And of course, Derek being Derek, totally blowing it.
What else is there?
Another thing that I love about that song is that it shows that Odette is really spunky, she's feisty, she can hold her own. But you will see in these future films that she loses that. Like, it was just a growing phase where she was like this cool kick-A girl who was really strong and fierce, like things that Disney princesses are trying to be nowadays, she is. But as soon as she becomes an adult, she just becomes very passive and mild and just not cool anymore. I mean, she's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but yeah, you will see in the future films that she's just such a passive character that it's really, really frustrating, especially considering the whole entire franchise is about her. And the other songs, for example, No Fear and Far Longer Than Forever, they are actually really, really good. For Odette's singing voice, they got Liz Callaway, who was a Broadway legend. She later went on to do the voice of Anastasia in Anastasia. So all of these fun elements, they just work. Another song that I absolutely love that is kind of ridiculous is Princesses on Parade, where Derek holds this big ball where he has to make a vow of everlasting love in front of the whole world. So, because they don't have internet or technology where he can just broadcast this, he has to invite the whole world to him. So all of these really kooky princesses arrive, and you would think like, what is happening here? I mean, they have these like dancer girls that have these metal plates on their faces. It's so weird and so bizarre, but it totally works. And then we have that really great moment of the Black Swan, which is basically Bridget, who is Rothbart's apprentice. Rothbart disguises her as Odette, so that way he makes the vow to the wrong person, and by doing so, he kills Odette. There's just so much drama, it's juicy, and it's really good. I can't say enough good things about the Swan Princess. In this film, we are introduced to the Pond Pals, as I saw someone refer them to, and these are basically the sidekick animal characters. There's a puffin penguin, there's a turtle named Speed, it's ironic, it's supposed to be, and then there is Jean Bob, who is a frog who thinks he's a prince. They are important because they will reappear again and again and again in every single film. Okay, so I'm gonna stop talking about the Swan Princess right there because that is just movie 1 out of 10. I have 9 more of these to do, so I need to pick it up. Next up is the sequel, The Swan Princess, The Race to Witch Mountain. No, wait, Escape from Castle Mountain, but it's also called The Secret of the Castle in some countries, but I just like to call this The Attack of the Apprentice. Going with a little Star Wars reference there. And now in this one, you can really feel that is a direct-to-video sequel. They replaced the entire voice cast except for Odette, because obviously budget cuts. And then the animation is just really subpar. To me, this combination of really poor, cheap animation and then just all the voice actors sounding different really threw me for a loop. But eventually you kind of just have to get used to these new voice actors. But the worst one for me was Derek. I don't know why they had to replace Derek. Maybe the voice actor for Derek was asking too much money, but looking at his IMDb, he really wasn't doing that much after the Swan Princess film. And there actually is a video of him online where he's reminiscing on the 20th or 25th anniversary of the Swan Princess.
It was kind of a magical experience.
This guy clearly likes the role. Why didn't they bring him back? And the reason I mention this because Derek's voice sucks. He is bland, he is monotone, he doesn't even sound like the same guy. It's a no-go. Now it is 1 year later, they are celebrating the 1-year anniversary of their marriage. And so they have this big dinner planned and this big celebration, but Derek, being large and in charge, just has too many things to do. There's some guy who's shooting arrows into the fields, and so the fields are catching on fire, and so Derek, I guess not having any hired help or any servants, he has to go to check it out and to stop it himself. And let me just talk about something that's really bizarre in this movie, is that Derek and Odette are now living in the Swan Lake Castle, which was Rothbart's castle. And it just doesn't make sense why they are living there, because Odette is the heir to her kingdom. She had a really nice castle, okay? Her dad died in the last movie. And then Huberta, okay, she's still alive, so she can live in Derek's castle until she dies. So why aren't they living in Odette's castle? Why the Swan Princess castle? Oh, I get it. It's because they need access to Swan Lake. Plus, that castle just looks a little cooler. So it turns out the bad guy who was causing a ruckus with all the fire, he was sent by Clavius. And Clavius was basically like a co-worker or an apprentice to Rothbart. And they worked together to discover the forbidden arts, which is basically how Rothbart got his powers. So once they unlock these forbidden arts, Rothbart just basically pushes this guy to the side. He more or less has the same intentions, but he, in order to access these forbidden arts, he needs to access the orb of the forbidden arts. So there's this orb that basically, if you own it or you touch it, then you can have the powers, which doesn't make sense. We're gonna talk about it soon. And of course, that orb is hidden inside the Swan Lake Castle. So there you go. That's why they had to be hanging out at the castle, because it would make it really easy for him to just walk in and steal it. And then we have this random subplot where it's Huberta's 50th birthday, and I'm like, 50th? Could have sworn it was her 80th. So she gets captured by Clavius, and she's basically a prima donna the entire time. And then of course, since it's a Swan Princess sequel and we can't think of any new storylines, we have to go back to the old storylines with Odette turning into a swan. So Bridget, who was Rothbart's assistant lady, she's basically a good guy now. And so she shows them where the orb is, and apparently she knows how to use the forbidden arts, and she turns Odette into a swan because she needs to warn Derek. They need someone who could get there super duper fast, someone who could fly there. But this is kind of risky because if the orb breaks, she'll be a swan forever. And I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, well, if it's kind of risky, why don't you just turn the penguin who can't fly and make him fly? And then if the orb breaks, no harm, no foul, because now he's just a flying penguin, instead of having the princess and the ruler of the kingdom trapped as a swan forever. hire me. So Odette finds Derek, and apparently he can talk to swans now. I think they've just decided, you know what, him not being able to understand her was just too much work in the first film, and we need to get with this, so he can just understand animals now, and then from this point on, they can understand all of the animals. Where in the original, only Odette could understand the animals because she was an animal, but now it's like, whatever. We just really like these characters and we want them here. In it, they have this weird synthesized Japanese remix of Far Longer Than Forever, and there's tons of reused animation everywhere. Like anytime they kiss, it's just the same kiss where he puts his hand on her head from the first film, and then the opening title sequence, that is reused, and that will be reused again and again and again and again. And at the end of the day, Derek learned how to delegate. He realized that I can't do all these things myself. I should actually ask people, hire people, get servants, get butlers, people who can do things like this for me so I don't have to rush into the woods to chase every single bad guy that comes my way. All right, so now we're talking about movie number 3. This is The Swan Princess 3, The Mystery of the Enchanted Treasure. Ooh. Or going with my Star Wars theme, I like to call this one The Revenge of the Other Apprentice. In this movie, yet another one of Rothbart's disgruntled apprentices comes around. This time, it's a woman named Zelda. And since we can't have this be a complete knockoff of the second film, instead of going after the Orb of the Forbidden Arts, she's just going after Rothbart's notes, like his homework. So in order to get access to those notes, she disguises herself as an accordion slave, whatever that is, and she tries to seduce Rogers so that way she can gain access to the castle, and then once she's there, she kind of has free reign to just do whatever she wants. She can go and find these notes. Now, the big point of contention here is that Derek didn't listen to Odette. Odette told Derek to destroy all of the notes because apparently Derek has just been holding on to some of Rothbart's old possessions. I don't really understand why. And so yeah, he's like, oh, no worries, it's fine. But of course, it's not fine, and Zelda finds it, and then she gets powers again. Because she has powers, and this is a Swan Princess film, she turns Odette back into a swan. How many times are we gonna do this? And Derek, being Derek, has to save the day. And again, this is another one of those, Odette was right, I should have listened to her plot points, moral of the story. Derek has a real problem with this. And just to yada yada the plot, they end up going to her lair, destroying Zelda, destroying the notes, and Odette turns back into a human. Hooray! And I will just say that the dark arts seem to be getting absurdly more powerful in each and every movie. In the first movie, it seems that the most that he was able to do was to put curses on people and transform them into things, and he could transform into the great animal. But in this movie, Zelda can straight up fly and teleport. Yeah, and also to clearly save money in this one, they just reuse a lot of animation. There's lots of songs. I can't tell you any of them because they were horrible. But during one of the songs, it's basically just reused animation from the first film because we don't have time or money to animate that, so we'll just use what we have. So that was pretty funny. And yeah, at this point I start realizing, oh no, what have I gotten myself into? Why am I doing this? Which leads me to probably one of the worst and kind of best films of this franchise, which is The Swan Princess Christmas. So we get The Swan Princess Christmas after a 14-year break after the release of the third film. That trilogy is done, and now we're opening up a new trilogy. And this time, it's in CGI. Very, very, very bad CGI at that. Honestly, the character models, they could not get them right.
They just can't get my nose right.
Yeah, it's just not a good look. And in the process of transitioning these 2D characters to CGI, they really had a missed opportunity to improve the characters. Instead, they just made them worse. And I'm not even talking about Odette, who just looks like she had some really bad back alley plastic surgery going on. Oh no, I'm talking about her hair. This lemon yellow hair just looks horrible in CGI. It totally worked in 2D for some reason, but as a CGI character, it's like, ugh, we need to put some toner on that. So after being off for 14 years, I don't really know why we decided that we needed this movie. It's just, I would love to dig into the history more, but whatever, we got it. And this movie, they just decided to throw everything out the window. It is so insanely weird. It has these horribly auto-tuned Christmas songs featuring a glee club because that was popular at the time. It has Derek snowboarding, and then there is this epic lightsaber battle between Uberta and Rogers for some reason. And they just play it off like this is totally normal, not weird that they have these lightsaber swords. And then really the cherry on top is the villain, because we don't have any other villains. We can't use our minds. We can't get creative on villains. So we're just gonna go back to what we know. And what we know is Rothbart. But he's dead, so we're gonna bring back the ghost of Rothbart. And so Rothbart's ghost comes back, I kid you not, to destroy the Christmas spirit. Not to take over the kingdom, not to gain more powers, just to destroy the Christmas spirit, because it's a Christmas movie after all. So he's going around the palace and he's cursing everyone, but he can't curse Odette because she just has too much Christmas spirit. Even though just 5 minutes earlier we were told that Uberta has more Christmas spirit than anyone they know.
And then there's Christmas Uberta.
Okay, folks, let's move it. We've got a lot of work to do.
She's very focused.
Yet he's able to curse her, so whatever. And since this is a Christmas movie, we get all Christmas all the time. All the stereotypical Christmas things are here. We have caroling, we have decorating the tree, we have wind chimes. Wait, wind chimes? Yeah, apparently wind chimes are a Christmas thing, and that's too Christmassy. So anytime there is a wind chime, Rothbart cannot go by it. So there's just wind chimes everywhere. And I'm like, could we not have done like Christmas bells? So this movie has a lot of songs. It's a musical, it's a Swan Princess film. They haven't given up on the songs yet. And it has a ton of public domain Christmas songs, meaning they didn't really have to hire a songwriter. They just had to hire a songwriter to, yeah, they still had to hire a songwriter, but you know what I mean. They didn't have to have original compositions. And just imagine the worst auto-tune you have ever heard of, ever, and make it Christmas. One thing that I actually really loved about this film is that they did focus on Jesus Christ as the meaning of Christmas. So a lot of the Christmas songs that they used were talking about Christ being the Savior and the Redeemer. Richard Rich and his studio have produced a lot of Bible films over the years and scripture videos, so they just went all in. And apparently Odette and Derek are Christian, and I'm here for it. And of course, because it's a Swan Princess movie, Odette is turned into a swan again! How many times do we have to do this? I mean, I guess you have to do it every time because it's the title of your franchise, The Swan Princess. And our Pawn Pals, they get turned into ornaments because, again, Christmas movie. But this movie has some of the funniest lines ever because they're really all in on this Christmas thing. Odette gets captured and she's like,
Do what you want with me, but you will never destroy Christmas.
And of course, Derek saves the day because that's just what Derek does. He saves the day in these movies. Odette can't figure out how to do it herself because she's always a swan. And there are some really, really great lines in this movie. For example, at the very end when they save Christmas, they say,
You saved Christmas, and it wasn't even on your list.
No, Christmas saved us. One thing that's weird about this movie is that it's their first Christmas together, which means that this is somewhere set in between the second movie and the original movie. Whatever. So yeah, this movie is pretty bad. It makes, honestly, the original 3, or even the 2 sequels that follow, look like the golden age of Disney animation. This one is really bad, but kind of awesome in a really bizarre Christmassy way. Okay, so movie number 5. This is The Swan Princess, A Royal Family Tale. And this movie is where the Swan Princess films like really take a left turn. AKA the one where Odette and Derek adopt a girl whose dad was killed on the side of the road, and then immediately the girl is kidnapped by a flying squirrel who works for a smoke monster, Sauron, and Odette and Derek eventually save her and destroy Sauron, fulfilling the prophecy that the Swan Princess's goodness will triumph over evil. Yeah, that's the plot. Uberta really wants a baby in this one. She's really heavy-handed with the, all right, you guys have been married for who knows how many years at this point. I need grandkids. And this one still has a lot of songs, but they are auto-tuned significantly. We have left the overly auto-tuned era, so thank goodness for that. But there still is a crazy auto-tuned song in the credits. So we gotta talk about the orphan girl Elise, because she's kind of an important figure in the rest of the movies. I think she's the star in probably the next 3 or 4 of the movies, which is not great. This is not great because I don't like Elise. She's annoying. Thank goodness she gets kidnapped for the entirety of this movie, so we don't have to deal with her that much. But I will say I really do like the fact that they adopted her. We normally don't get to see a lot of adopted characters in animated films, so I thought this was just a really great way to showcase that. But that being said, I think it would be amazing if they showed a pregnant Odette. If they just went there. Well, I mean, not there, but pregnant went there. I think it'd be cool to have a pregnant Odette character and then she has the baby in one of the films. But we don't get that. Instead, we get little annoying girl who gets kidnapped. In this one, Uberta and Rogers fall in love, so there's this like flirtmance happening throughout the whole thing, and then finally at the end, they both say, I love you. And so they're an item for the rest of the series, so that's important to note. And then these lion freaking squirrels, guys. Why? Why? I don't know why they decided they needed these characters, but these characters are really important in future films. So if you hated them in this one, you're gonna hate them in the next ones. All right, we are officially halfway done with all the films in the Swan Princess series. Next up is the 6th Swan Princess movie, The Swan Princess, Princess Tomorrow, Pirate Today. And the name is dumb, because the movie is dumb. Now, this is where there is a noticeable shift in the animation. The quality has definitely risen. So apparently someone somewhere are watching and buying these sequels because they have a bigger budget now. They've redesigned the characters where they actually look a little bit more closely like their 2D models. So that's a plus because Odette there for a while was really looking scary. And as I was watching this, I just remember thinking, like, isn't it a bit too early to get a movie that focuses entirely on Elise? It's a little too early for a spin-off, but it is not because they literally have no other plot lines for Odette and Derek, and so we're focusing on the new hotness, Elise. And Elise basically doesn't want to be a princess. She has to do all these princessy things, she doesn't want to do it, and so she goes with Rogers on a pirate ship and becomes a pirate. And of course, she tells us about it through song! Odette and Derek are going to be gone all summer helping to build a bridge. Again, why don't you have servants for these things? They sail to an island where they find a little orphan boy named Lucas, but he's not actually an orphan. He ran away from his parents when he overheard that they were going to take him to an orphanage. So he was almost an orphan boy, but he ran away from his parents, so I guess he is an orphan boy. But his parents are still alive, so I guess he's not an orphan. I don't know. On this island, there's a whole bunch of these creepy, spiny lizard creature things called bogs. I don't know, it's just the creature du jour. And while Elise is with Lucas, they end up capturing Rogers, and to prevent them from eating him and cooking him, he tries to turn it into a reality cooking competition show, and so they really go all in with that, where these different characters, they're turning it into a competition and they're divided into 2 teams, complete with the Survivor-style confessional interviews where it has their name on the bottom and what team they're on. It's just really weird. Again, at this point in the franchise, they're like, meh, screw it. And then one of those flying squirrels, there's just a random fat flying squirrel who's a ghost. And we will see this ghost in other films, and he's just a really easy character to pass information back and forth from characters who are separated from time and space. Yeah, let's just have the fat ghost flying squirrel do it. Going back to those bog creatures, they have hoverboards for some reason, so they're just riding around the island on these hoverboards. I don't even know what's happening at this point. The flying squirrels, they realize that Elise is missing, and so they hop on a boat to go rescue her, but there's no wind and they don't have a sail. So they form a giant sail out of flying squirrels and then just on their way to save the day. The squirrels basically are the new Derek. Derek used to be the one saving the day, but no, this isn't a Derek and Odette movie. This is Elise and the Flying Squirrels movie. So Elise and this little boy, they're kind of adventuring all around the island. They're trying to save Rogers. They're speaking in sign language at one point, which is kind of cool because they can't talk, but they both immediately know sign language and they're just doing their thing. And Odette and Derek are brought back into the story because the parents actually really did want the boy. I don't know why you would talk about sending him to an orphanage anywhere near the vicinity that he could hear you, because that's not going to go well, and it didn't go well, but never fear, they have Odette and Derek to save the day. And there's this really bizarre exchange when they meet the parents. Odette says,
"That's such a lovely wagon."
By lovely, she means, sturdy.
Oh, that's right. My family always says lovely when they mean sturdy.
What? Huh? So yada yada yada, I bet you can figure out what happens. Lucas gets reunited with his parents. Yay, they're a big happy family. Elise gets reunited with her parents. Rogers does not get eaten. And at the very end they say, we must have had help from the angels. Yes, angels indeed. And then they pan to the North Star and that's it. So I guess that's why we had the ghost squirrel there, because he was supposed to be a guardian angel. It still wasn't really clear, but yeah. Next up, movie number 7, Swan Princess Royally Undercover. At this point, I'm like, there's still 4 more of these to go. Now, let me just say, I do not recommend watching this movie late at night in your bed because you will fall asleep within the first 5 or 10 minutes every single time. And it's gonna take you a whole week to get through this movie. Do not do that. So with this one, they go to another land to form an alliance with one of King William's old acquaintances. So they go ahead and they do that. And while they're there, someone pokes a hole in the dam and it floods everything. Of course, Odette and Derek save the day, but they're trying to figure out who is this person who would have done this. So at the same time, this new king that they met, he sends over one of his viziers, I guess, to their kingdom. And then he starts to smooth talk Uberta. Well, you remember, Uberta, she's with Rogers now, but she totally is is smitten by this new guy, Antonio. She's fallen in love with him, and Rogers is not here for it. Odette and her kingdom raised a lot of money to help rebuild the town, so that's why Antonio is here, because he's collecting all of that gold. As soon as I saw Antonio with his little mustache, I knew he was gonna be the bad guy. And he was the bad guy. They didn't even try to hide it at all. But they don't know he's the bad guy, so that's where the royally undercover goes in. Rogers and Elise go undercover, and apparently when you go undercover, you put on cool glasses. Then they recruit Lucas, who then again puts on cool glasses. And then Speed, and then Jean-Bob, and then Puffin. All complete with sunglasses. In this one, Rogers has a special room. Apparently he studies to be a spy, so he has a spy shack with all of this spy gear, like a bow tie that is a camera or something. Like, what? But the thing to note here is that Lucas is back around. He doesn't really like visiting the castle because he feels that he's not really worthy. And Elise, this really bugs her because she wants to be his friend and she wants to hang out. Maybe she wants to do a little more than hang out. Well, never mind, she's like 12. So yeah, the bad guy gets destroyed. While they're in this epic battle, Odette starts singing for some reason. And then Derek saves the day. And then randomly at the very end, they have a little throwback to that cooking show from the last movie. And I'm like, why? Why did we need this? We don't need this. All right, movie number 8, The Swan Princess, Royal Mystery. Before I saw this movie, I was like, why are they spelling mystery with a Z? What is this all about? And then I watched the movie and I'm like, oh, I get it. There's a mysterious bad guy who is going around town and marking everywhere with the letter Z. Very much like Mask of Zorro. And no, it's not Zorro, it is somebody else. The movies at this point are just so bizarre. They talk about painting a selfie and they're breaking the fourth wall all the time. Huberta's on a book tour because all of that Antonio drama when he was courting her and she fell for it and then she whatever at the end. Apparently she turned that into a novel. So she's going all around the kingdoms selling her book. So, and remember that ghost squirrel from 2 movies ago? Well, now he's back, and then one of those Bog characters is back as a ghost. But never fear, because Rogers actually has a ghost rope which will catch ghosts. Again, why? This movie is just so dumb. I don't even know what's happening. All I know is there's like the person who's doing the Z's on the wall. They think it's Antonio because his last name started with a Z. Turns out it's not. It was his number 2 guy because again, it's always the apprentice in the sequel. And so he was the one who did it and that's it. But after 8 movies, I'm proud to report that Odette did get a new outfit. So this main bad guy, his name is Niccolo, and he's kind of like a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde sort of character. He's always switching off to these really bizarre personas. It just didn't really work for me. I didn't understand why he was acting this way. But this, oh my gosh, I just remembered. So Niccolo convinces the kids, Lucas and Elise, somewhere underground, and he traps them on these giant scales of justice. So they're stuck there forever. And so Derek, he saves the day by switching places with them. So now Derek is gonna be stuck on the scales of justice forever. And then he ends up in this room that's like running out of oxygen, and he's supposed to push this button to save the day, and he doesn't, he passes out. And so Odette, because again, they have this ghost character who's able to talk back and forth. She's somewhere. And so she starts singing, "Far longer than forever," because apparently that will wake him up. Newsflash, it doesn't. So instead, the ghosts have to scare a rat to jump and step on the button. And that's how they save the day. Honestly, like, I don't even know what else to say with this one. It's just so weird. Do not watch. Do not recommend. All right, movie number 9, The Swan Princess, The Kingdom of Music, because music. We love music in these films. Even though the only ones that had good music was the Christmas one and the original one, everything else was bad. And so this one features kind of a road trip. We finally get out of the Swan Princess Kingdom and we head to Asia. But it's not Asia, it's very much China, but they don't say China, it's the Kingdom of Cathay. And since we haven't really touched on the turning into a swan storyline in a while, with this one, there's this princess who her boyfriend is turned into a dragon by her dad because the dad did not like the boyfriend. So instead of just saying, hey, get out of here, no, I'm gonna punish you for eternity by turning you into a dragon who can only turn back into a human during sunset. That is way worse than the original Swan Princess curse because at least she was a human for like 12 hours. With him, he's got maybe like 10 minutes. This princess also has a brother. He is a singer, and they are actually holding a singing competition in the Swan Kingdom, and he is going to win the prize to represent the kingdom of Cathay. So basically, this movie revolves around this singing competition. Oh, Elise is grown up in this. It is her coming of age party. They're gonna have this competition. The winner of the competition gets to sing a song at her coming of age party. And we all know who it's gonna be. It's gonna be this guy. Even though there's these other characters from around the world, we have the Russian ice skater, we have the African dancer, we have the blonde girl. No, that was the Russian girl. Whatever, we have some people from around the world, okay? It's obvious that he's gonna win because he's the only one that we know anything about. So in the other movies, I did not like Elise. She was annoying and weird. She was like this preteen character that just like, that's just an awkward time for everyone, even animated movie characters. But now she's supposed to be like, I'm assuming 18. They just don't do the 16 coming of age anymore because that's just like, don't go there. So I'm assuming she's 18, and she actually ends up falling for this guy. And that makes Lucas super sad because at the very beginning, they were all gung-ho. They were actually kind of a couple. And Elise really hates Prince Lee a lot, and she does some really non-princessy things that are super rude that call him out. But then they play the harp together. So romantic, and they start falling in love. And at that point, Elise turns super savage on Lucas. She basically says, yeah, I'm in love with him now, so bye. This makes Lucas super sad because all he wanted to do was be with Elise. Really, girls, if there's a guy that's hanging around for no apparent reason, it's probably because he likes you. And this music competition, it's basically like American Idol and The Voice, where they have a panel of judges. So there's Roberta, there's Rogers, and then there's Jean-Bob for some reason, and he's just really, really bent on not liking anyone and giving everyone bad scores. So also at the same time, Prince Lee's sister, Princess Mei Lee, she stowed aboard his ship with her boyfriend because they wanted to meet the Swan Princess because she had broken the spell herself. Maybe she could do it for her boyfriend. So they discovered that the way to break the spell is that you have to not be in love with that person anymore. You basically have to break up with them. And so the only way that this guy can turn back into a human is if the person that he loves just breaks up with him and breaks his heart forever. That emperor is savage. So of course they break the spell at the end, and it sort of has a twist on the spell, kind of like Frozen. Princess Mei Lee doesn't break up with him, but instead her brother Prince Lee breaks up with Elise. Prince Lee saw how much Lucas meant to Elise and vice versa, so he says, you know what, I don't want to get involved. He breaks up with her, and boom, the spell is broken. Right as it ends, we get good old "to be continued," which normally watching one of these films would fill me with dread, but this one was actually good, guys. I really, really, really enjoyed this film, and I can't say that for many of the others. So this brings us to the 10th and final film, The Swan Princess, A Royal Wedding, or as I like to call it, The Swan Princess and the Green Flame Torch. Let me know in the comments if you understand that reference, because that's deep. This entire movie is basically set in Cathay or China, and I'm trying to wonder why we suddenly had this very Asian-inspired influence in these last two films. Personally, I think there must be a Chinese investor. We've seen this with a lot of other companies and animated films like Abominable and Over the Moon. I tried to research it, I have no idea, but that is just my hunch. But I am all for a change of scenery, a change of pace. I really, really enjoyed these last two films, how we had new characters, new cultures. And with this one, okay, the spell was broken, great. Now we have to go back and tell Dad that the spell is broken and that I still want to marry him. Because the Emperor has a very powerful sorceress named Fang who there's nothing stopping them from putting a curse on him again. But never fear, to help break the ice, they bring Odette and Derek along, and Odette breaks the news to the king with a poem. Yep, she reads him a poem and then he says, all right. So they start arranging plans for the wedding, and this gets Fang super, super mad because she wanted to marry the boyfriend. That's why she cursed him, because she wanted to marry him. So she comes up with this elaborate plan to turn herself into Princess Mei Lee, and then she turns Princess Mei Lee into a super, super old lady, basically on the brink of death. And then as soon as she dies, she dies. Now, Fang actually is a really great villainess. She's not just a rehash of Rothbard or an apprentice, which we've seen time and time again. She's unique. She's kind of like a Jafar, where she has all these powers. She's a vizier that's speaking into the emperor's ear, and she's kind of controlling him that way. And even so much like Jafar, where she turns into a giant snake at the end. So also in this film, Uberta and Rogers, they disguise themselves for some reason as old people. They are old, but they disguise themselves as even older people. And Uberta looks like a really scary version of Yzma. It's not a good look. Being a spy is Roger's thing, apparently, so why not? So eventually they do figure out that Fang has been disguising herself as the princess the entire time, and the only way to get rid of her, well, at first they try to banish her. They say,
Just go away.
and of course, that doesn't work. She is so powerful. The magic in these movies just keeps getting crazier and crazier and stronger. But the only way to stop her powers comes from the source of this green flame. And the flame is powered by the ancestors. So if they turn off the green flame, they turn off her powers, but they also turn off their connection to the ancestors. So it's like, do we want to do both? Eventually they say, yeah, this lady is crazy, and they get rid of her by extinguishing the flame. There you go, all 10 of these Swan Princess films. I'm not gonna lie, I really didn't enjoy myself watching these. The very first one, it's good, it's great, it's amazing. The 2 sequels that are hand-drawn, really bad, really bad. The Christmas one, we go up a little more. That one was pretty hilarious for all the wrong reasons. And then when we have preteen Elise, that's just no good. The Flying Squirrels, I mean, it's going downhill. But it picks back up at the end with the 2 ones that have these new characters, kind of the Chinese-inspired ones. I really, really, really liked those ones. So we started on a high note and we end on a high note, and everything in between is just not so good. But we did it, guys. We did it. My roguelite, again. One has a boy princess. Wow, I don't remember anything from this one at all. So she gets claptured. And blah, blah, blah. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Ah.